What's up, guys? I'm Tinashe Moyo, and welcome to another episode of Stride. On this channel, my goal is to inspire people to take the first step towards their goals in life using my personal experiences. And in this video, this is part 2 of a series called Becoming the Franchise. So sit back and enjoy. Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. Yeah. Seems like I'm back again for like the 10,000th time. I know you guys are probably being like, what the hell is going on with this nigga? I mean, it seems like I'm being very consistent with being inconsistent. I don't know if it makes sense, but I hope you get it. Well, still failing to be organized, but yeah, I'm just working on it. I'm working it out. So yeah, soon, you're gonna get some consistent content. I'm really praying about it. But look, here's the thing. I want you guys to like experience these things with me, because when the day this channel becomes successful, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when. Like, you got to walk by faith, right? When the channel becomes successful, I want each and every one of you guys to look back and literally say, oh, he used to miss like 3 weeks. He used to miss like a month. But now this thing is bigger because it has to be real. That's the whole purpose for this channel. So yeah, I'm gonna work on it as much as I can. And also, this is September 2024. That means we are officially celebrating Stride 1 year. Man, broken English, sorry. Yeah, it's like a 1 year anniversary for Stride. But here's the thing. I sort of have like mixed feelings for this thing, considering the fact that I've not really been consistent. I've not really been giving you guys consistent content. So that's why you haven't been seeing any cool graphics celebrating a 1 year anniversary or anything of that sort. But I guess at the same time, I don't have to like hammer myself too much. Things like these happen, and we just have to celebrate the small wins that we get. That will definitely set us up for the bigger wins. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I really appreciate those that keep on asking me like, yo, we haven't had content for like 3 weeks or something. When are we gonna get the next video? Like, I'm truly appreciative of that, because it really makes me understand that this actually isn't a joke. You people actually take it seriously. And I want to thank you guys for the support that you continue giving me, because it's easy for people to like boot out of the whole thing. Like, nah, he's not being consistent, so we're never going to watch it. But y'all still ask for more content. So I really appreciate you guys for that. Anyways, I don't want to waste much time. Yeah, we'll get to celebrate more. Yeah, definitely. So let's get into the actual detail. So, guys, if you watched the first part of the series, I ended at a part where I introduced Warren H to you guys. So I simply stated that I met Warren H in 2008. So I'm just gonna elaborate a little bit more. We got to meet at a college called Wrench House College. Um, I was still chasing my 5 O levels, which I never got, you know. So I mean, besides the point, Warren was actually attending the same college. So yeah, I knew Warren from, I think, grade school, primary school, when we were kids, but we never really spoke that much because he was 2 years younger than me. Well, still 2 years younger than me. It's not like he miraculously got older. So I was in the same class with his cousin brother. So, we were, I think, a little bit close with the cousin brother, but not too close. So, anyways, yeah, we created, I think, a bit of a foundation with Warren H. Conversation wise, we didn't really talk that much, considering the fact that I think when we were kids, we would probably just bump in the streets. Sometimes we'd greet each other. Sometimes we wouldn't, So you're just trying to understand each other. So we didn't really talk that much, but at least we created, something to the point where even if we got to bump into the streets at that point in time, we could at least say something to each other. So, anyways, I think later in that year, 2008, I got to know this dynamic duo called P Square. So, a Nigerian duo, right? So, I came across this group on Channel O. Like, I was first introduced to them when I saw their song called Roll It. Roll It. At that point, I didn't know that those guys were twins. So, because I think I saw the one of the twins like performing the video for Roll It, and then I immediately fell in love with that song, particularly that song. And then shortly after, I think that's when I got to know the song No One Like You. No one like you. I think it was released after Roll It. Yes, it was released after Roll It. And then I was just like, this is beautiful. Like, I really fell in love with the music. I loved the way they created their music. I loved their videos. Their visuals were really stunning and amazing. Even the songwriting as well. It was more of the R&B stuff, even though it was Nigerian, but that kind of thing where there's love, you can actually tell that this is music that's coming from the heart. So I was just like, this is my stuff. That's why I really fell in love with those guys. So later on, well, not later on, maybe a few months after, I finally got my hands on their full album called Game Over. And that's the album that also included the song called Ifunanya, with the title that I used for my article, which I wrote. If you haven't watched Stolen Words, go watch it, you'll understand. But if you've watched it, you'll definitely understand where Ifunanya is coming from. So I was really, really enjoying myself with their music. And then 2009, they introduced their new album called Danger. And man, I was having the time of my life. Also at the same time, my favorite artist, Lloyd, of course, I mean, need I say more? He released an EP called Like Me. And yeah, I repeated that EP like crazy. So I had that EP, I had Game Over, I had Danger, I also had Lessons in Love, I also had Street Love. This was Lloyd P Square. It's like a crazy mashup. I was really, really having so much fun. Those things really made me fall in love with music. Now, during that period, right, I I had instances where I would, where I would get into the toilet, right, and I would spend so much time in that place. Now, my family would complain that I spend so much time in the toilet, right? But now, this is me getting into that place with my earphones, and I would play music. And the interesting thing was this: I would actually be performing any music that I'd be listening to, be it Michael Jackson, be it P Square, be it Lloyd, any of those guys. I would actually, perform their music, because if you watched part one, I spoke about this thing where I would create different scenarios when I'm listening to music, right? So that's what I would do in that space. I'd always see myself performing on stage, or even if it's a video. That's how crazy it was. It got to a point where my dad got worried sick. Like, he would always ask me, like, yo, do you have stomach issues? He would even ask me, like, bro, are you producing solid stools? And I was like, what is he talking about? Solid stools? What the hell is that? Little did I know that stools was actually another word for poop. Yeah. And that's how crazy that's how crazy it was. Well, it wasn't even any of that. But then I couldn't tell them exactly what I would be doing. So yeah, I mean, that was just a crazy part. But at the same time, I would actually get inspiration from that place, secret ideas and all of that. So I guess we could call that the chamber of secrets, But anyways, excuse me. So that was like a period from 2008 to 2009. So if you guys remember, if you've watched my episode called Unqualified but Unbeatable, I spoke about my struggles with my academics, right? So 2010, I stopped the whole academic thing. Now, I didn't know what I would do with my life. I had no idea, no career opportunities whatsoever. And so in that moment, I thought that music was the key to everything for me at that time, because that was one thing that I was really zoned into. So I ended up hooking up with a really good friend of mine called Yuvanda Vambe. And Yuvanda was into music, I think more of listening to music. And he was also a good writer. He was also into books. So I was just like, okay, let me get along with this guy and at least get to see what he's about, get to see what I can learn from this guy. And Yuvanda is like three years younger than me. So I was just like, all right, let me see what it is I can get from the guy. So I think I would spend so much time at his place, like almost every day. I would go to his house and, we would talk about music, so many different things. Like, he's a really funny and crazy guy. So we would definitely talk about different things, but music was actually like a priority. So he ended up telling me about Warren H. He told me that Warren H has an album, and he told me that Warren H has a studio. So I was just like, okay, I knew this guy. I spent a bit of time with this guy in 2008, right? But I didn't get to hear about any of that from him. So I was just like, this is interesting. I would love to get into a studio. I would love to make some music. I would love to do all of those, crazy things. So the good thing was that I would get to bump into Warren H here and there in the streets, right? So the first time I got to bump into him, I actually asked him about his album. But due to time constraints, he would just be like, all right, I'll see what I can do. I'll hook you up. I'll hook you up. So a few of those meetings, that was just the brief conversation about his album. So, shortly after, there's a cousin of mine. Her name is Zodwa. It's just short for whatever, right? A cousin sister of mine who I really, really love. She paid me an unexpected visit at home because what happened was that growing up, we never crossed paths with Zodwa, and me being the cousin that would always be self-isolated, I never really got to know that much people, right? So it was just one day I was just sitting outside. I think I was just having lunch or something. And then she actually came home. And then I was just like, okay, this is interesting. And funny enough, considering the fact that we had not spoken at all ever since we were kids, she paid me a visit, showed me some love, and we instantly clicked in that moment. And she actually came home with another friend of hers, right? So she didn't stay for that long, and she actually asked me to escort her to see a friend of hers. And that friend happened to be none other than Warren H himself. So they were really, really close. And knowing that Warren had a studio, that was my way in. So when she went to visit Warren, we went together. So it was the three of us. It was me, Zodwa, and a friend as well. So we got there, and Warren had a bedroom studio. But it was interesting. He had some cool equipment, a microphone, a mixer. I think should be a P3 machine, a PC, right? So I also got to meet two of the guys that he was working with on that day. And those guys were Kuti Beats and his cousin, Nick Boy. They had an interesting record label called Kutnik Records. So I was just like, all right, this is really cool, right? I got to meet these guys. I finally got to meet Warren in his space. So I was just like, okay, let's see what we can come up with here. So I just told myself, like, okay, this is my way in to the whole music thing. If I want beats, if I want to make music, at least now I know where the studio is, right? So every single time Zodwa would come to the hood, she would definitely pay me a visit, or she would just call like, yo, let's meet up at this place, let's meet up at that place, right? And then we would go to the studio. So the more we went there, the more I became a little bit closer with Warren H. So Zo, okay. I usually call her Zoe. Some people call her Zodwa, but I'm just gonna, I'll mix up the names if the need be. So she ended up going away for a while, but at least now I had the chance to go to Warren H's place. So by virtue of having access to the studio, I just got this thing where I wanted to learn how to produce as well. So every single time I would visit the studio, I would see Warren making beats, and this dude is massively talented. Take it from me. I would see him making beats and all of that, and he would, at that time, he was using a digital audio workstation called FL Studio. Well, I think some people might know it as Fruity Loops, right? I would look at what he would do on the software when you would be making music. So I ended up getting FL Studio myself so that I could practice making beats. So bit by bit, I would watch tutorials just to learn how to make the instrumentals. So sometimes Warren would, man, this place is really, really hot. Sometimes Warren would just come over and just mess around on my machine because I was also using a P3 computer at that time. I think the brand, if I'm not mistaken, was Compaq. So yeah, he was pretty cool at that time. So he would come up, just mess around with Fruity Loops, and I would be continuously watching the stuff that he would do. So I would be making some crappy beats for someone who was still starting out, but I think I was actually happy with the very first instrumental that I made because at least I had understood some formulas when it came to, making the beats, particularly arrangements, because that was one thing I was usually stuck on. Excuse me. So once I got to that, I started making more beats. Most of those beats I didn't like at all. I just didn't like how they sounded, but I think it really helped me with the skills. Now, the interesting thing, once I got the hang of it, I I started stealing like beats. I would steal some beats from Michael Jackson. I would steal beats from Lloyd, mostly Lloyd. I would still, I think most of his songs, I would like dig for Lloyd songs. And, I would use the notion that most people didn't really know Lloyd's music if it wasn't on any of his commercially released albums. So I'd always go for singles and all of those things. And then I would remake those beats. I would rip those beats, right? And some of them I would actually like start writing when I would make those beats, right? And another interesting thing was that as I would be writing, I would use melodies, particularly Lloyd melodies. That's how crazy it was. I'm really thankful that I wasn't arrested or anything like that. But that's the process that I would use. Now, I spoke a bit about songwriting just a few seconds ago, right? What I would do is I would go to Uvanda's place. Uh, I would steal poems from the internet because I wanted things to seem like I was a really, really good, or rather great songwriter. So I would take poems from the internet, and then I would go with them to Uvanda and make it seem like I already wrote a song. So I would use this thing where I would say I can write lyrics, but I can't come up with a melody. Uvanda was good when it came to making melodies. So I'll just be like, okay, I've got the lyrics. Can you create melodies from the lyrics that I have? You know, we would work on a few songs, but there would also be instances where Uvanda would actually he would actually question, like, did you really write this thing, or you got it from somewhere? And I would just be like, no, it's me, man. It's me, bro. I mean, it's me. You know, it's me. You know? And you would just be like, all right, I remember this one time I stole John Cena's old, I think old lyrics from his album. I don't know how old the album is. And I think I actually went with the lyrics to him. And then I was just like, all right, yo, come up with a melody on this. But he didn't do anything. A few days after, I think it was actually a week or a month after, it was just like, I want to go to the internet cafe. Like, I want to research something. It seems as though someone stole John Cena's song and came with the lyrics, and it made it seem like they were the ones who wrote that. And I was like, whoops, that is actually me. So yeah, I'm not sure if he did anything with those, but I mean, that's how crazy it was. So anyways, continuing with that story, I had actually gave Uvanda some lyrics from a poem called A Day in the Life. Because, I mean, I was more of the guy who wanted to write inspirational stuff, I just wanted to differentiate myself from people who would sing about money, all of these crazy things. I wanted to be someone who was real and very inspirational. So I went with those lyrics to him, and the interesting thing was that Uvanda would come up with melodies even without a beat. So I was just like, okay, this dude is gifted. So I think before we did anything with the lyrics, there was a beat from Lloyd's mixtape from 2010, called, should be 2009 actually. And the mixtape was called Lessons in Love 2.0. So there was one song in particular that had a beat that I really, really liked. So I chopped the beat and I looped it with a virtual DJ. I'm pretty sure some of you guys might be familiar with that digital audio workstation. So I looped it up and I was just like, I'm going to use Lloyd's melody to make a song. I think I recorded a demo that sounded really terrible, but I was just like, okay, I would want this beat to be turned into like an instrumental that I'm going to sing on. So I actually went with that instrumental to Warren H, the loop rather. And I think I went to see him. I played the loop and I was just like, okay, I want a beat that is very, very similar to that, or particularly a beat that sounds exactly like that. Warren H started working on it. To my surprise, he made a beat that was completely different. Completely different. The one that I took, Lloyd is an R&B artist. Warren made a beat, I think it was a hip hop beat, something you could rap on. So I was just like, okay, first of all, I don't like this beat. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't even sound like the beat that I wanted. But then I was just like, okay, I gotta work with with what's there. So I was just like, man, this is tough. And so he arranged the beat, gave it to me, and then I went with the beat to Uganda. And then I was just like, okay, there's this beat. We need to write something on it. So that's when I produced the lyrics for A Day in the Life. And we just ended up calling the song A Day in the Life. So Uganda came up with the melody for the beat for rapping, and then I was just like, okay, so I'm probably gonna be rapping on this beat. So if I think a few weeks after, Warren H actually came to my place, right? And then my dad had he had a microphone. I think he had this microphone for a very long time. Before Warren H, he actually showed me that microphone. And he was just like, this is a Newman microphone, to be specific. And he actually told us a bit about the microphone. Like, this was one of the best microphones that was ever used in the music industry, with a really great sound. So he asked me if I was going to need the microphone at some point in time, but I had no vision of doing things like these, or just doing music in general, like recording stuff for myself. I had no vision whatsoever. So I was just like, no, I don't think I'm going to need it. Now I actually regret that decision, because I could have had a really good microphone, and, you know, inheriting it from my dad, but well, that's how life goes anyway. So yeah, Warren H came to the house and my dad handed him the microphone and he was just like, okay, I haven't used this thing in a very long time. So if you want, you can go make music with it. So as soon as Warren H got the microphone, he was just like, yo, we gotta record. And I was like, okay, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. I had no clue what we were supposed to record. So he was just like, oh, you still have that beat that I gave you, right? And then I was just like, oh, A Day in the Life. Oh, yeah, I've got that. So he was just like, yeah, so you can come to the studio and then we record that that song. So I think what made him want to record me was the fact that, there was a song by, was it? No, yeah, Birdman and Wheezy. I think the song is called Strapped. So Lloyd had done a freestyle on that beat. And then I was just like, okay, I'm going to take this beat and then I'm going to sing Lloyd's exact lyrics on that beat. So I sang it and then Warren H actually listened to it. And I made it seem like I was the one who wrote that freestyle. But then I wasn't. So I think later on, that's when Warren was just like, yeah, let's go record A Day in the Life. So I went to the studio with the microphone because my dad had this deal where he was just like, you can, you can record, and then after you're done, my son has to bring the microphone at home just to keep it safe. So I went with the microphone, and when he was at a point where he was just trying to test the sound, adjusting all of those things, right? Um, he was just like, okay, I just want you to record something on the microphone. So I went to the microphone, right? And I just started freestyling, but I was just singing. Well, I was actually rapping lyrics from A Day in the Life. So as I'm rapping, I think I did it like two, three times. I was just repeating. So I think when I repeated like the second or the third time, I heard Warren H saying, there's too much humming in your voice. And then I was just like, huh? What does he mean humming? I mean, what the hell is that? You know? So anyways, I was just like, all right, um, we will see to it. And then came the time to actually record that song. I'm rapping. I'm not singing. I have no idea, breathing techniques, nothing. I start recording and I had the worst experience ever. Warren was so livid because of my performance. I mean, it was really, really terrible. Dude was yelling, dude was saying all these crazy things, right? And me experiencing the studio, the microphone for the first time, I felt stupid. We came to the part where we had to do the chorus. I couldn't even deliver, until Warren had to improvise and lend some of his vocals on the chorus just to make things a bit easier for me. He was he was just going off, and I was just like, man, this is really terrible. I felt really stupid in that moment, right? And he was just like, okay, look, let's do a demo. You go and listen to it. You go and practice this thing at home. That made me feel even more stupid. So I recorded the verse, and then towards the end of the verse, I choked up. I didn't even get to finish the verse. And he just exported the song like that, sent it to my phone, and he was just like, yep, be serious and go do something at home. And I was just like, damn. So when he was actually escorting me home, along the way, I actually tripped, right? I didn't fall, but I tripped, and it made me feel even more stupid. And he was just like, oh, you want to fall now? It's just like, man, shut up, because I just felt some type of way. So anyways, I think I was supposed to rehearse. I was supposed to practice that song, but I didn't. Then I think a few weeks after, I had wanted to do a song called Rock Bottom. I was just like, okay, bro, can you write this song for me? Can you produce this song for me? And then he was just like, all right, cool. So in my head, I was like, I want to do this song because I'll probably have to sing instead of rapping. So we set a date for the studio, and I went to the studio, right? So in my mind, I was thinking to myself, like, I'm probably gonna rehearse the song. He's gonna teach me how to perform that song, right? Since he's the one who's produced, since he's the one who's written the song. To my surprise, I was actually supposed to record the song. No rehearsal, no nothing. And he wanted me to do like punch recording. And then I was just like, how am I even gonna do that? Like, I'm not a professional, right? So he gives me the first line. I botch the first line. I mess it up. I can't even sing. Dude starts going off again. Dude, why are you being like this? You're not supposed to be like this. You should be like this. You should try this, try that. Yeah, he gave me options, but I failed at every single option. From that experience, I developed a massive, massive fear for the microphone. And I think from that time, I never had the courage to like go on the microphone. And now in the studio, in a way, I think I told myself that I couldn't talk back to him because I was just like, oh, uh, it's his place. He's going to kick me out. So I just got to be humble. Probably. I just didn't have much control, So I was just like, yeah, that's just something else. So I ended up choosing to lean on producing, learning to like produce more than wanting to sing, because I was just like, okay, at least I can, if it's producing, right, I can just do that stuff at home, instead of having to go to the studio. I just decided to zone in on producing, right? So working, FL Studio. Of course, I was still ripping beats. And then I ended up getting another different digital audio workstation called Reason Studios. And I chose to get more into Reason because I felt like, FL Studio, in as much as it paved the way for us, the instruments they just sounded the same. Even if you could hear some songs on the radio, you could actually tell that this was Fruity. So I was just like, nah, we need Reason. Reason is some cool and different, different instruments. So we were working with Reason, and Reason was, it was so much fun. So even as I was making beats, I still had a knack for singing. But then because of the fear, I would never take that step to get into the studio to record. So I was just like, okay, maybe for the sake of Warren being nice to me, let me make more beats so that I can start giving him some of the beats that I make. If he likes the stuff that I give him, he's gonna tone it down on me. Then maybe if I want to record, he's gonna take it easy, when it comes to me in the studio. So I was just working on different beats, right? So along the way, me being a huge fan of his music, right? I wanted to, let me say, remix or remake some of the music that he had done. So I had 4 songs in mind. I think amongst those 4 songs, I think, 2 of them were instrumentals, and then 2 were actually songs that they had done. There was a song called Mellow Madness, which was featured on I think it was a compilation album that Warren did with the one of Zimbabwe's greatest rappers, in my opinion, called Jeezy. So that song, Mellow Madness, featured the late, great Takuma Fika, may God rest his soul. So Mellow Madness was a cool song, and I was just like, okay, I would love to do something on this. And then there was another song called Back Home. That song had Jeezy, Warren H, and Kuti Beats on that song too. So I was just like, okay, these are two songs I would like to remake. So when it comes to music, right, if you want to do stuff like that, you have to pay like the artists, the producers, and all of that. So I was just like, all right, so I got to pay Warren H. I have to pay, Jeezy. But then I had to pay with the money that I stole, right? Sticky Fingers was still was still, in charge at that time. So yeah, that's exactly what happened. But you know what? I never did anything with those songs. Nothing. Well, back home, I actually recreated it, like the instrumental. I recreated it in Reason, but I didn't sing on it. That was stupid of me. So later on, I thought of taking a page from, Michael Jackson. There was one of his greatest songs, in particular, Man in the Mirror. Michael did not write that song. That song was written by a lady called Sieda Garrett. I'm forgetting the other co-writer. So I was just like, I would want to sing a song written by two people, right? So there was this girl named Shirley, and Shirley was massively talented. Shirley could sing. And they shared a really, really strong chemistry with Warren. The music they made was awesome. Warren would produce or even write sometimes for Shirley. And then Shirley, being the vocalist she was, she would nail every single song that Warren would do for her. So I was just like, okay, bringing those two people together to write a song for me, that would be amazing. So I ended up getting a beat. It was actually cool, an R&B beat from Kuti Beats, of course. And then I asked Warren and Shirley to write, but then Warren ended up giving Shirley the whole thing, like, yo, write this stuff for this dude. So Shirley ended up working on a song. So I think I wanted a song that could, thank my parents for the work that they did during the toughest times when my little brother was sick, and unfortunately he ended up passing away in 2011. He was still young. So I was just like, okay, this is just a dedication to my parents. And so yeah, Shirley wrote a decent song, and guess what? I didn't do nothing. I didn't even sing or record anything, particularly because of the fact that I was also insecure about my voice. My voice is deep, so I was just like, nope. I don't sound like any of these cool guys, Chris Brown, Lloyd, so I can't sing, like Barry White had a deep voice. I'm sure he was, I would tell myself that he was the only guy who could get away with it. So, yeah. But then anyways, I was just like, all right, you know what? Let me get back to the whole producing thing. So I kept on producing, I kept on making beats, but then I was still ripping off. And here's the interesting thing. Warren ended up creating a pre-working agreement so that I could produce music for him. Because at that time, his record label was, I think it was called Capital H Records. So by virtue of that, I would always go with a bunch of beats for him to listen to. So one day I went with a bunch and he ended up picking one beat in particular. This was a beat that was a complete rip-off of a song that was done by Nipsey Hussle. And he ended up making a song called Going Nowhere.